Every name has a story, and behind every story is a human life. This video is about one name that deserves to be remembered. Keeley Bunker was 20 years old when her life was stolen from her on a September night in 2019. She had just celebrated her birthday, dancing and laughing with friends at a concert in Birmingham. She was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered, the kind of young woman who dreamed of becoming a teaching assistant because she wanted to help children learn and grow. She had her whole future ahead of her, and she trusted the wrong person to walk her home. What happened that night would expose not just one terrible crime, but a pattern of violence that had been hiding in plain sight for years. The evening started like so many others for young people in Tamworth, Staffordshire. Keeley had gone to Birmingham with a friend to see a concert, a celebration of her recent 20th birthday. After the show ended, they met up with more friends at a nightclub in the city, including Wesley Street, someone Keeley had known since childhood. They had grown up together, shared memories, and built what she believed was a foundation of trust. When the night came to an end and it was time to head home to Tamworth, Keeley made a decision that seemed perfectly reasonable at the time. Her friend Monique offered to let her stay over, but Keeley declined. She told Monique not to worry, that she had Wes with her, that he would walk her back, that everything would be fine. Those words would haunt everyone who loved her. But everything was not fine. Instead of taking Keeley safely home as he had promised, Wesley Street diverted their path to a rugby club near Wigington Park. What happened there in the darkness was an act of unspeakable violence. Street raped Keeley, and then he strangled her to death. The young woman who had been dancing and smiling just hours before, who had her whole life stretching out before her like an open road, was gone. And Street, the childhood friend she had trusted, made a calculated decision. He dragged her body to a brook, placed it face down in the water, and covered it with branches to hide what he had done. Then he walked home, went to bed, and went to sleep. The next day, when Keeley did not come home, her family knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. This was not like her. She was not the kind of person to disappear without a word, to leave her family worried and wondering. By evening, a search was underway. Her family, her close friends, and police officers combed through the area, desperately hoping to find her safe. Wesley Street joined these searches, playing the role of the concerned friend. He spoke to police, retracing his steps with them, consistently maintaining that he had left Keeley alive and well. When officers took his phone as part of their investigation, he said something that would later seem chilling in its audacity. He told them, "I feel like you are blaming me." It was Keeley's uncle, Jason Brown, who found her. He was part of a search party looking through the park near a telephone box where Street claimed he and Keeley had parted ways. There, hidden under branches in the brook, was his niece. The discovery shattered a family and a community. A post-mortem examination would reveal that Keeley had been strangled and that Street's DNA was on her body. There were scratch marks on her neck, evidence of her desperate fight to survive, to pry his hands away, to breathe. She had fought for her life, and she had lost. Street was arrested shortly after the discovery of Keeley's body. As police drove him to the custody block at Cannock, they asked if he had any questions. His response was chilling in its casualness. "Not really," he said. Later during that same journey, he complained that he was hungry and asked if there would be food when they arrived. A young woman he had known his entire life was dead by his hands, her family was destroyed by grief, and he was thinking about his next meal. What came next was a masterclass in deception and manipulation. Streety changed his story at least 4 times as the evidence mounted against him. Each version was carefully crafted to fit whatever facts the police had uncovered, a constantly shifting narrative designed to minimize his responsibility. He told investigators he was scared and embarrassed by what had happened. Finally, on the last working day before his trial was set to begin, he settled on his final defense. He claimed that he had accidentally killed Keeley during consensual sex in the park, that they had been flirting, that things had simply gone wrong. He said he put his arms around her neck and accidentally killed her, that she went floppy, and he started to panic. He admitted checking for a pulse, but claimed he never thought to call for help. He admitted putting her body in the pond and covering it up before going home to sleep. And he admitted something else that showed the calculated nature of his actions. He returned to the scene multiple times over the following hours to add more branches to better conceal what he had done. But the evidence told a different story. The scratch marks on Keeley's neck, the way her body had been hidden, the DNA evidence, all of it painted a picture not of a tragic accident, but of rape and murder. And as the investigation continued, something else emerged that would reveal the true nature of Wesley Street. Other young women began to come forward, and their stories exposed a pattern of sexual violence that stretched back years. The court heard testimony about 3 other victims, young women who were friends or acquaintances of Streety, just like Keeley had been. In 2015, when he was just a teenager himself, Street had raped and sexually assaulted a 16-year-old girl. In 2017, he sexually assaulted a 15-year-old girl. And in 2019, just 4 months before he murdered Keeley, he raped another 20-year-old woman. These were not isolated incidents or mistakes. They were part of a pattern, a history of targeting young women he knew, violating their trust, and committing acts of sexual violence without any regard for the trauma he was inflicting. One of the survivors told the court that hearing what happened to Keeley had given her the courage to come forward about her own assault. Another described how she had blamed herself for being raped because she had gone to Street's house and kissed him, not understanding that kissing someone is not consent for anything more. She said it was not until she heard the sad news about Keeley that she found the courage to tell someone, and only then did she feel the full force of what had happened to her. A third survivor said that after Street attacked her, she was scared to tell anyone, but looking back, she realized that if something makes you physically sick to your stomach, it is definitely not okay. These women showed incredible bravery in coming forward, particularly given their young ages, and the fact that they were speaking out against someone who was popular, well-liked, and had many friends. The prosecutor in the case, Hannah Sidaway, made an important point about how we think about perpetrators of sexual violence. She said that it is easy to have a stereotypical image of a rapist, but what we often do not think about is a young man who is popular, who has many friends, who is well known and liked. Wesley Streety did not fit the monster image that many people carry in their heads. He was someone people trusted, someone who seemed normal, someone who could blend in. And that made him all the more dangerous. The lead investigator, Detective Inspector Cheryl Hannon, described him as a devious and manipulating character who preyed upon Keeley after she trusted him to walk her home that night. He put himself at the center of the investigation, lied to police, to Keeley's family, to her friends, telling everyone she was safe and well, even as he knew her body was hidden in that brook. The trial took place during the coronavirus pandemic, with special arrangements made to maintain social distancing. The proceedings were spread across 3 courts, with half the jury in the normal position and the other half sitting on benches, usually used by barristers. After just over 8 hours of deliberation, the jury returned their verdict. Wesley Street, 20 years old, a former warehouse packer, was found guilty of raping and murdering Keeley Bunker. He was also convicted of 2 additional charges of rape and 3 counts of sexual assault relating to the 3 other victims. The evidence had been overwhelming, and his constantly changing stories had convinced no one. At his sentencing hearing, Justice Jeremy Baker criticized the carefully crafted scheme of lies that Street had tailored to fit the evidence as it emerged. The judge described how Street had diverted Keeley to the rugby club where he raped and strangled her, then decided to hide her lifeless body by depositing it in the brook and covering it with branches before walking home to bed. Street was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 29 years. He will be an older man before he even has the possibility of release, and there is no guarantee he will ever walk free again. The impact on Keeley's family was devastating and permanent. Her mother, Debbie Watkins, spoke about being robbed of her precious and beautiful daughter. She described Keeley as the kindest, most caring, innocent young lady you could ever meet, someone who was only just starting out in her life. The family said they were incapable of showing any forgiveness for what had been done. Mark Ensor, Debbie's partner, said the family had been destroyed by Keeley's death, haunted by thoughts of trying to visualize and understand just how such a dreadful thing could have happened to such a beautiful person. He said Keeley would do anything for anybody, and that she did not have a bad bone in her body. Christopher Bunker, Keeley's father, spoke about how her sister and brother were now a shadow of how they used to be. Keeley's sister described her as one of the most vibrant, caring, and beautiful souls this earth has ever seen. The community of Tamworth rallied around Keeley's memory in a powerful way. Pink ribbons were tied around the town in tribute to her. When her funeral took place in October of 2019, people lined the streets to pay their respects. Detective Inspector Hannon praised the people of Tamworth for the love they had shown to Keeley. In their statement after the verdict, Keeley's family said that as her family, the outcome of the trial would never be enough in terms of justice. And they were right. No prison sentence could bring Keeley back. No verdict could undo the violence that had been done to her. No amount of time behind bars could restore what had been stolen from her family. Justice Baker, in his sentencing remarks, acknowledged the profound loss. He said it was clear that Keeley was not only loved by so many, but that she was one of the kindest, most caring of individuals. He noted that she had lost the opportunity of fulfilling her life ambition of helping to educate young children, and that her family had lost the company of their beloved daughter, sister, and niece. Keeley had wanted to be a teaching assistant. She wanted to help children learn and grow. She wanted to make a difference in young lives. She never got that chance. This case raises difficult questions about how we recognize and respond to patterns of sexual violence. 3 young women had been victimized by Wesley Street before he murdered Keeley Bunker. One had reported informally to police but had not wished to continue with an investigation. The others had remained silent, carrying their trauma alone, until after Keeley's death gave them the courage to come forward. We have to ask ourselves what might have been different if those earlier reports had been pursued more aggressively, if there had been a way to connect the dots sooner, if the culture around reporting sexual assault made it easier for young women to speak up without fear of not being believed. These are not easy questions, and they do not have simple answers, but they are questions we must continue to ask. The prosecutor, Hannah Sidaway, described Streety's actions as truly evil and spoke about his pattern of offending. She said this was not a spur-of-the-moment attack, but a pattern of behavior over a significant amount of time. She described his mindset as, "This is what I need, this is what I want," and he was going to fulfill those wants without any regard to his victims. That mindset, that complete disregard for the humanity and autonomy of others, is what makes sexual violence so devastating. It reduces another person to an object, a means to an end, something to be used and discarded. And in Keeley's case, when she resisted, when she fought back, when she tried to survive, Street made the decision to end her life rather than face the consequences of what he was doing. The video footage from that final night shows Keeley and Wesley laughing and dancing together in the nightclub, 2 young people who appeared to be friends having a good time. No one watching them would have imagined what was about to happen. That is part of what makes this case so chilling. The violence did not come from a stranger in a dark alley. It came from someone Keeley knew, someone she trusted, someone she had grown up with. The statistics tell us that this is actually the most common scenario. Most sexual assaults are committed by someone the victim knows, often someone they trust, but knowing the statistics does not make individual cases any less shocking or heartbreaking. Keeley Bunker's family will never get over this loss. They will carry it with them every single day for the rest of their lives. Every birthday that passes, every holiday, every milestone that Keeley should have been there for will be marked by her absence. Her siblings will grow older without their sister. Her parents will never see her achieve her dreams, never walk her down the aisle, never meet her children. All of that future, all of that possibility was stolen in one night of violence by someone who was supposed to keep her safe. But Keeley's name and her story will be remembered. The pink ribbons in Tamworth, the people who lined the streets at her funeral, the way her community came together in grief and solidarity, all of that speaks to the impact she had in her 20 years of life. She was loved, she was valued, and she mattered. The fact that Wesley Street is spending decades in prison is not justice in the truest sense, because real justice would mean Keeley was still alive, still pursuing her dreams, still bringing light into the world. But it is accountability, and it is a recognition that what he did was monstrous and unforgivable. For the other survivors of streets violence, the conviction and sentencing may bring some measure of closure, though they too will carry the trauma of what he did to them. Their courage in coming forward helped ensure that the full pattern of his behavior was exposed in court. They helped make sure that he was held accountable not just for Keeley's murder, but for the other acts of sexual violence he had committed. That took tremendous bravery, and they deserve recognition for that. This story is a reminder that we need to listen when people, especially young women, tell us they have been assaulted or made to feel unsafe. We need to create a culture where coming forward is met with belief and support rather than skepticism and blame. We need to recognize that perpetrators of sexual violence often do not look like the monsters we imagine. They can be popular, charming, well-liked. They can be the person you grew up with, the person you trust. And we need to take every report seriously, because patterns of behavior often emerge only when we connect the dots between multiple incidents. Keeley Bunker deserved so much more than the 20 years she got. She deserved to fulfill her dream of becoming a teaching assistant. She deserved to fall in love, to travel, to experience all the joys and challenges that life brings. She deserved to grow old, surrounded by people who loved her. Instead, her life was cut short by an act of brutal violence committed by someone she trusted. But her memory lives on in the hearts of everyone who knew her, in the community that rallied around her family, and in the story that continues to be told so that her name is not forgotten. That is all for today. Do not forget to subscribe and be kind to each other.